6-year-old Etan Patz vanished on May the 25th, 1979, in Manhattan's Soho district of New York City. He was never again seen alive. It may now seem like a distant memory, but not so long ago, milk cartons across the United States featured the images of thousands of children with the black word missing. The fate of many of them is still a mystery today, despite the campaign for missing milk cartons' enormous reach. In 1979, 6-year-old New Yorker Etan Patz was the first child to have his picture plastered on milk cartons. His case remained unsolved for almost 40 years. The case that inspired the creation of the Missing Milk Cartons Children's Program was finally resolved in 2017 when a jury found the man suspected of being responsible for Etan Patz's disappearance guilty. Even though a suspect is currently in custody, the 40-year-old mystery surrounding Etan's disappearance is nonetheless unsettling. On Friday, May the 25th, 1979, Etan Patz, 6, left his Soho, Manhattan home for school. The black Eastern Airlines cap and striped sneakers were what the blue-eyed boy was sporting that day. He prepared his favorite toy cars in an elephant print bag, took $1 to buy a soda, and headed out onto the streets of New York. He finally convinced his mother, Julie Patz, to let him walk alone to the bus stop, just 2 blocks away. She had no idea it would be the last time she would see her child. The New York Police Department deployed 100 police officers, helicopters, and bloodhounds to search for the missing child. They searched going from door to door, searching every room and the entire community. Pictures of Etan were widely circulated across various platforms, including television networks, telephone poles, Times Square screens, and milk cartons across the country. Etan Patz's abduction in particular caught the attention of both parents and children outside of New York, and pushed the milk carton campaign to a national level since it was so sudden and such a senseless act. After the abduction of Etan in 1983, President Reagan declared May the 25th as National Missing Children's Day. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children was then established in 1984 due to the events surrounding his case. The group quickly adopted the Iowa milk carton method, featuring Patz in the national campaign as the first missing young person to appear on a milk carton. It had been 5 years since he disappeared, and most of the leads had gone cold. As the faces of more missing children started to emerge on pizza boxes, utility bills, supermarket bags, phone directories, and other items, a new wave of worry and suspicion swept the nation. The alerts occasionally worked, like in the instance of Bonnie Lohman, age 7, who discovered a photo of herself as a baby while grocery shopping with her stepdad, who had kidnapped her 5 years prior. Since those occurrences were uncommon, the image's main effect was to raise awareness that the world was not as happy and pure as many Americans thought it to be. Milk cartons were used as a dramatic and frightful props during stranger danger discussions in households and classrooms. Etan Patz's true fate was still unknown, although his name had become associated with stories and warnings of predators and killers. Law enforcement kept looking into Etan's disappearance over the years. In 2000, investigators searched Jose Ramos' New York basement. Ramos was a convicted child abuser who had once been romantically involved with one of Patz's babysitters, but despite searching for 8 hours, they turned up no proof. 22 years after going missing, Etan Patz was ruled legally dead in 2001. Patz's father requested the declaration to bring a wrongful death lawsuit against Ramos, who was found guilty in a civil case in 2004, but never confessed to the boy's murder and was not put on trial for it. The investigation was still ongoing. Police discovered in 2012 that Othniel Miller, a handyman who knew Etan, had laid a concrete floor after the youngster vanished. They dug around but found nothing else. However, media interest in the case was rekindled as a result of the dig. A few weeks later, Jose Lopez called the police to accuse his brother-in-law, Pedro Hernandez, of being the one who killed Etan Patz. Hernandez had been an 18-year-old stock clerk in a grocery store on Prince Street, not far from the child's residence, on that tragic morning of Etan Patz's abduction in 1979. Hernandez returned to his native New Jersey a few days after Etan vanished. He soon began telling people he had murdered a youngster in New York. He broke down in tears as he admitted to his church group, former classmates, and even his fiancée. He confessed to having led Etan into the store's basement to the police after being apprehended. He claimed, "I grabbed him by the neck and I started to choke him." However, Hernandez stated that the boy was still alive when he put him in a plastic bag, which was then placed inside a box that he then threw away. The first arrest in the case was made by authorities 33 years after the disappearance. The trial was lengthy, however, as there was only Hernandez's testimony presented as proof. Hernandez, now 56, was said to have a mental disorder that made it impossible for him to discriminate between fact and fantasy, according to his defense team. Hernandez had an IQ of 70, as his attorney reminded the jury, and he claimed that the police had questioned the mentally ill man improperly. They contended that he had been persuaded into confessing to something he had not done. They also referred to the Ramos case, claiming that Ramos had a more apparent motive. Hernandez's 2015 trial came to a standstill because one juror thought Hernandez was innocent. However, the jury was persuaded during the 2017 retrial. On February the 14th, 2017, Hernandez was found guilty of murder and abduction. The disappearance of Etan Patz haunted families in New York and across the country for nearly 4 decades. Cyrus R. Vance Jr., the Manhattan District Attorney, said of the decision, "Today, a jury affirmed beyond all lasting doubt that Pedro Hernandez kidnapped and killed the missing child." 38 years later, the public's remembrance of Etan Patz's story has never vanished. People laid flowers in front of the abandoned store where he was murdered on the day the case was officially closed. They were addressed to the Prince of Prince Street. On milk cartons, missing children's faces, like Etan's, are no longer visible. However, the 1996 instituted Amber Alert system ensures that Etan Patz's disappearance has had a lasting effect. These notifications, which are now sent directly to phones and Facebook feeds, are much more successful than the Missing Milk Carton Children's Campaign. The Netherlands Amber Alert system has a remarkable 94% success rate. Etan Patz and numerous more children like him were unable to be saved. Perhaps their deaths were not entirely in vain. I know your first question is, what was his mother doing allowing her 6-year-old to walk to the bus stop in New York? Things were so much different back then. Children back then had more freedom than our children do today. As in the Stephen DeMann case, His mother left him outside the grocery store while she shopped. It was after Etan's disappearance that parents and teachers began to have the conversations with children about stranger danger. There was child deviance back then. However, they were not as bold as they are today. In those days, child predators relied on parks with lost puppies and the candy trick. Sadly, it is now the digital age, and predators can reach right into our homes. On a lighter note, spring has finally arrived where I live. I was finally able to turn the heater off, hopefully for good this time. Tell me, is it spring at your home, or do you still have the heaters on? Let me know, do you remember seeing missing children on milk cartons when you were small? Tell me your thoughts on this case in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.